Hello everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman and this is your look at the astrology for June 30th through July 6th, 2025. So I'm on Beach House Internet. I don't know if it's going to hold or if we'll see. But if you are watching live, do say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. I know that it's sort of a holiday week for those in the United States. So maybe you're traveling, maybe you're not. But as always, if you are watching live, do say hello and let me know where you're watching from, because I have Sag rising and I love to sort of vicariously travel through everybody. But for those that don't know who I am, my name is Katie Sweetman and I'm an astrologer and psychic medium located in the rolling hills of central Maryland, usually, or at least within the last year. Right now I'm in Delaware. And every week we gather live to look at the astrology. You hear me say it every week. The astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. So this week, it's kind of interesting in the sense that it brings us to the end of a very particular story. And if you are a Taurus or a Scorpio or perhaps even an Aquarius or Leo, this is a story that you may know very well. I certainly know that I do. I'm a Scorpio, for those that don't know who I am. This story began in May of 2018, May 15th, 2018, and then again on March 6th of 2019. And that's Uranus and Taurus. And we've been doing this long enough. In fact, I did my first Facebook Live. It was June of 2019. So, go back to the old ones. You'll see an arc of development. But this story began when Uranus went into Taurus, and for some of us, and I know I can speak for myself, life began to shift. Uranus will spend in total 6 or 7 years in each of the 12 zodiac signs. So it takes 84 years to go around the sun, to go throughout the zodiac. And wherever Uranus is, that area needs to go through a reinvention and transformation. Uranus is an evolutionary planet. It belongs to a class of planets, evolutionary nature, that were discovered in modern times. I say modern in air quotes because Uranus was discovered in 1781, not quite so modern, but it represents an energy and an archetype that began to come into the collective consciousness around that time. The planet that the ancients knew, meaning the last planet that the ancients could see in the sky, was Saturn. You know, Saturn's one of my favorite planets, but Saturn represents the end, the boundaries, the limits. It's what we can see. It's our manifested world. And Uranus begins to take us beyond that, certainly over the last 250 years. But on a personal level, wherever Uranus is, again, that area has to go through a process of awakenings, transformations, and reinventions. So if you are a Taurus, think back to your life, or Taurus rising. Think back to your life at the beginning of 2018. See where it is now. Do you see a difference? I don't know, maybe you don't. I can sort of go through a laundry list of Taurus risings in my head and be like, wow, there's been some big changes in Taurus's life. And this week, Uranus is at 29 degrees of Taurus. And that's like, it's not that it snuck up on me, but, between Saturn changing signs, Neptune changing signs, eclipses, other things, it kind of sort of was sitting there in the background. It's okay, Uranus, look, I'll get to you. But Uranus coming to the end of Taurus represents a culmination, not a complete culmination, because Uranus will leave Taurus, come back to Taurus. I think it's in October. And then it will go back to Gemini in next April. So we are completing a story of reinvention and transformation through the sign of Taurus. And Taurus is the first earth sign. It talks about what we value, what we want to invest money in, our sense of value and worth in the sense of our physical value and worth, but also how we value and worth ourselves. Taurus really puts us in contact as an archetype and a sign with the material plane. It stands on the other side of the sky from Scorpio. And Scorpio, even though I'm a Scorpio, I know that it's not an easy sign because it represents the end of a cycle of something that is preparing to leave it. From a physiological standpoint, from a natural standpoint, the earth is going through the end of its growing season and the leaves are changing, and that process talks about the necessary change and endings in order for new life to begin. Aries, Taurus, start of the zodiac. So Taurus and Scorpio, standing at opposite ends as complementarities, they talk about our matter and material world. And so Uranus's energy has been really through that prism over the last 6-7 years. We have seen our material and physical world shift and change, and perhaps even what we value, personally, collectively, shift and change over the last 6-7 years. Uranus, I said this earlier, but just to sort of put it back into your heads, Uranus has an 84-year cycle. So the last time Uranus was in Taurus was the 1930s, and with Uranus going into Gemini, it goes into a sign that it has not been in since 1941 all the way to 1949. So there are some of you that perhaps you were alive during those times, but for me, not during my lifetime. Uranus going into Gemini. Gemini is the third sign of the zodiac, but also the first air sign, says that Gemini now needs to transform and reinvent, and it will do so over a 7-year arc. Uranus going into Gemini is one of those planetary changes that I've had my eye on, and especially because in 2024, but more like 2025 and 6, we have this parade of outer planets all changing signs. The first planet to change signs was Pluto, went to Aquarius 2023-2024, hadn't been in Aquarius since the 1770s and 1780s. No, 1780s, 1790s. Then came Neptune in Aries. Neptune went to Aries just this past March 30th, had not been in Aries since the 1860s and 1870s. Neptune has a 160-odd year cycle. Who else changed signs? Now Uranus is changing signs. Of course, we had Jupiter go into Cancer. That was on June 9th, so about a month ago. That's not so out of the ordinary because Jupiter has a 12-year cycle. So last time Jupiter was in Cancer was 2013, 2014 in our lifetime, unless you're 5. So Uranus going to Gemini, it represents some sort of a shift, but the shift is going to be different than, say, 1819 because it's a different element. It's air. It's how we think. It's how we listen. It's how we learn. It's how we communicate. It's how we move. It's how we travel. And Gemini is also the sign of choice. So something will need to transform personally, collectively, over the next 7 years in how we think, how we listen, how we move, how we choose, how we learn. It's hard to say concretely what this is going to be. But on a personal level, if you are a Gemini, Gemini rising, and even if you are a Sag, Pisces, and Virgos, these are my 4 mutable signs. Uranus into Gemini represents a tectonic shift in your life. Uranus going into the sign of the sun, Gemini, if you are Gemini, it is the start of a personal reinvention. It is very likely that you're already on some level feeling this. It could be a restlessness. It could be a thinking of options and choices that perhaps you haven't thought of before. And I remember saying this to my Taurus clients back in 2018, the beginning of 2018. I was like, Taurus, what is the most radical thing that you can do? And I know a lot of Tauruses were like, I don't want radical, Katie. I just want to, kind of keep things the same. But I know nothing has been the same over the last 6-7 years. And radical can sometimes be, the most radical thing you can do is be happy, that you can choose yourself, that you can be safe, stable, and secure. So it doesn't have to be something negative. Of course not. So I would say the same thing to Gemini. What is the most radical thing you can do? Is it to choose yourself? Is it to choose something different? Is it to open up your eyes? Is it to go in a different direction? Is it to break free from something? Uranus wants us to not be stuck. Being stuck is sort of the Saturn side of sort of this like progression of energies. With Saturn, as much as I love Saturn, it is a sign that can really become a roadblock. It's dense, it weighs on us. But on the flip side of things, of course, Saturn supports us and helps us to grow and mature. But there's two sides to the coin. So Uranus is like, oh, I see you forgot who you are. Here, let me help. I'm mildly obsessed with certain things in astrology, and I know you all probably know I'm mildly obsessed, or more than mildly obsessed, with Saturn. I'm probably equally obsessed with eclipses and eclipse cycles, and I'm even kind of low-key obsessed with Uranus, because something that I'm obsessed with is the different life cycles that we all go through at the same ages, roughly. So the Saturn return, age 28, 29, 30, is something that we all go through. It is the first test of life. It is where life hands you the contract and says, sign, and you do. Then we go through our 30s. We're typically doing Saturn, the things we are quote unquote supposed to do. But then we get to about 40. I know some of you are approaching 40, you're in your 40s, you're well past your 40s. But it's important to understand Uranus in the context of what it does to everyone from about 40 to 45. This is what we call in astrology the Uranus opposition. It's about age 42, 43. Sometimes it can be exactly at age 44. It really depends on the person's personal astrology. But it hits us within that 40 to 45 age time frame. And that is what we culturally call the quote unquote midlife crisis. But I wanted to reframe it for a second, because in reality, that period is very often a time of rapid personal growth and transformation. And if you have gone through that period in your life, or perhaps you're sort of stepping into it, it's a time that's trying to remind you. I'm going to continue recording because I have beach internet, so it might have cut out, but I'm going to kind of keep talking in case it does. So let me get my thought back. So the 40s, it's a time where we really meet the energy of Uranus. Whereas perhaps in our late 20s is the time that we really meet the energies of Saturn. So even if you're like, but how is this relevant to me? I'm 25, I'm 55, I'm 85. Well, if you're 85, you're going through Uranus return. But it's for you to understand that this energy really wants you to break free from yourself. And really amazing things can happen in people's lives in that time frame, 44, 40 to 45. Again, that's why I'm kind of low-key, or not low-key, obsessed with the Uranus opposition. So if you were born from about 1982 to 1986, sometime in 1981, depending on the date, sometime in 87, and then sometime in 88, depending on the date, you are going into your Uranus opposition. Even if you were born in 87 and you have Uranus at the end of Sagittarius, really start to pay attention to what is starting to shift in your life right now, because the story is a bigger story. If Saturn sets the stage and framework for your life, we get to this period where we can really make some big changes, make some reinventions, have a breakthrough, have an awakening. And even if you're not in that age range, I wanted to sort of evoke that period in our evolution, should we go through the 40s, so that we can understand what Uranus and Gemini might mean for a certain part of our life. Because Uranus could be going into your relationship sign, Sagittarius. It could be going into your career sign. Who has Gemini as their career sign? Virgo. So these are just a couple of examples of where it could be a time of rapid personal growth and transformation for career, relationships, your relationship with yourself, for example, spirituality. So it really depends on the chart. But I wanted to flag for my Uranus and Sagittarius babies that this is a start of a major chapter of your life that builds upon the Saturn return. It doesn't negate the Saturn return. The contract of life is the contract of life, but we are humans and we make choices, and sometimes we get stuck. So Uranus is that sort of part of the story where Uranus comes in. It's like, oh, I see you're stuck here, let me help. So I quit my job at 40 to become an astrologer full time. So that's just an example. I wasn't sort of thinking intently, what's my Uranus opposition? Maybe I'll quit my job and become an astrologer. But it was a period of my life where there is a desire to live authentically, as much as that word is way overused in modern life, but to live your life outside of you as it matches inside of you. Regardless of your age, keep these sort of ideas in your head because they could be applied to different areas of your life. So Uranus going to Gemini, for those who are in North America, South America, it will be early on July 7th. For those who are in Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, it will be the 6th of June. July, 6th of July. My brain's still June 6th. So that's our big story for this week. But I wanted to really put this on our radar because Venus, which is the ruler of Taurus, it's not its last. It will make another conjunction to Uranus and Taurus in 2026. But it's kind of curious that as Uranus is preparing to leave the sign, it makes that conjunction to Venus. This could be a week, personally, we'll see beyond that, where it's trying to break free of something that maybe it's taken 6 years, 7 years for us to be able to do that. Or maybe it's just a reminder to live the changes that you have been making over the past few years. We all went through 2020, 2021. We all had our own experiences, but I've had a lot of conversations with people over the years, and some of you had some really profound realizations during that time. So how do you live them if you're not living them already? We also have Neptune turning retrograde this week. It will turn retrograde on July 4th at 2 degrees of Aries. Neptune is a little less obvious than Uranus, has a much longer cycle, spends 14 years in one zodiac sign. Has not been, again, I said this before, but it has not been in Aries since the 1860s, 1870s. Whatever goes through Aries, whether it's the sun, whether it's Mars, whether it's Neptune, it brings us through a sign that talks about new beginnings. So Neptune's time in Aries is some sort of new beginning for all of us personally and collectively. That new beginning is through this energy of Mars and Neptune. Why Mars? Because Mars rules Aries. Mars is action, drive, power, initiative, and that energy is meeting up with Neptune. Compassion, intuition, new beginnings that take into account everything and everyone. There's a sense of universality to Neptune. That's high side of Neptune. Of course, there's a much lower side to Neptune where we feel lost or we feel ungrounded. And it is a week to listen or to pay attention to your dreams, to listen to your intuition, but it's also a week to check your grounding, because Neptune can really pull at our anchor point, and we can get swept away in its energies. Find your grounding, find your feet on the ground, feel your tailbone, really feel the earth. That's a good support as we go through a collective Neptune transit. So those are our main points for this week. It's quote unquote a quiet week astrologically. What's quiet these days? But let's go through each of the 12 zodiac signs so we get a sense of what is beginning to shift with Uranus going into Gemini. We'll come back to this next week because we'll have a little bit more. We have a Capricorn full moon next week. We'll have Uranus properly in Gemini as well. So let's look at each of the 12 zodiac signs, starting with Aries. Aries, so Mars is your planet, and it's been in Virgo for the past couple of weeks. So it's been a welcome change in the sense that you just had Mars for a long time in Leo, plus or minus, because it was retrograde December to February. So the energy of your sign is now pointing towards a sign that wants practice and craft and organization and duties and responsibilities. So like I said, it's a very different energy. For some, Aries is a time to focus on your health and wellness. It's time to, especially with the South Node there, really pay attention to the things that are coming up for your review, because the South Node, when it's in this part of the chart, we need to take better care of ourselves, better care of our bodies. We need to pay attention to the details. We need to make sure that we are not rushing through things. We need to make sure we're showing up on time. For some Aries, this is about work and projects. It's not just health and wellness, but it's also the operations of your life. Like, how do you show up? How do you run things, for example? That said, Aries, Gemini is something called your third sign: voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. So we are beginning to cap off 7 years of Uranus in your money sign, whether it's literally money and income or just your sense of stability and security, your sense of safety, safety in this world, safety within yourself, perhaps even your own value and worth. Uranus always marks some process of awakening, some process of growth and greater consciousness. So the question is, what have you learned? What have you discovered? And what has changed over the past 6-7 years? Uranus going to Gemini, it brings that energy of reinvention and transformation to your voice. It doesn't mean that you will speak differently, I don't know, unless you will, over the next 7 years. But voice is not just your ability to open your mouth and speak. It's your ability to make sure that what is coming out of your mouth matches what's within. Doing so means that you get back in touch with you, your voice, your essence. It's not to say the words of somebody else, for example. Or it is to change, or to rather to evolve how you think, how you listen, how you learn, how you speak, how you sing. For some Aries, this is a time of movement when it comes to education, and maybe there's a time of really taking classes, and maybe that's really an enriching and nourishing a part of your life that hasn't perhaps gotten as nourished before. Uranus, it's going to be very specific to you because ultimately it's picking up on the energy of Mercury. Mercury gives us the sense to look at the world or to look at our lives and to make choices. So what choices will we be making over the next 6-7 years? These will be choices that will require more consciousness for you. It's not to make choice impulsively, it's to make choice consciously. So what else? Gemini, there you go. Not Gemini, Aries. Taurus, we've had many a conversation over the last 6-7 years. Believe it or not, we've been talking about this since June of 2019 when we first started doing this. But Uranus has been in your sign since May of 2018, March of 2019. It has marked a huge arc of transformation and growth that has been different for each Taurus or Taurus rising. You all live your lives differently. There's not just, one cookie cutter version of Taurus. But Taurus, by its nature, needs stability. It needs security, grounding. It needs that connection to the material world, the sensuality and the pleasure of the material world. And so the question for you to reflect on is, Taurus, what has changed? It's been certainly a lot of things have happened in the world over the last 6-7 years. What has happened in your world? It's been a time for you to really get back to you, and sometimes with a radically so. It will be different if you're Taurus rising versus Taurus sun. It's just some semantics, but those past few years have represented some big shift in your life. So this week on some level is a finale. It's not the finale. We got to get to 2026 for that, but it is a finale. And this finale is showing you something. Pay attention this week, especially as Venus, your planet, reaches a conjunction to Uranus on July 4th. What illuminates? What changes? Nothing changes, but the idea is to have shifted your relationship with yourself, shifted your relationship with money, income, the material plane, and even shifted your relationship with value and worth. Uranus will now, at least on the 6th or 7th, go into Gemini, your second sign of money and income, material stability, and security. And again, each Taurus rising will live the next 7 years in their own way. We are still human beings. We need a roof over our head, some sort of currency and resource. And that part is shared, but how you live it is your own. There will be some sort of shift in value and worth over the next 6-7 years. Some of you will make investments, you'll make purchases, you will accumulate. Some of you maybe will downsize. You're like, you know what, maybe I don't need all these things. Or maybe I want to take my time and my money and put it on something else. And for some Tauruses, it's more about your relationship with value and worth, because usually our relationship with ourselves is very reflected in our relationship with money and resource. Venus, your planet, again, it makes that second to last conjunction to Uranus on the 4th, and then also on the 4th it will go into Gemini, where it will remain until the end of July. In Gemini, it sort of picks up the energies of Uranus. In Gemini, it's just to sort of listen, pay attention. What is the state of your money, material needs, your bank account, how you earn a living, and where do you start to see that there's a shift? Uranus demands authenticity. It demands consciousness. So where do you bring more consciousness to this part of your life? Gemini. So Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is presently in Leo. And it's going to be in Leo for a while because in July, it's almost July, we're going to have Mercury retrograde. But that's kind of like, we'll talk about that later, because the real news this week is that on the 6th, depending on what part of the world you're in, or on the 7th, at least on this side of the world, you're going to have the start of Uranus in Gemini. Hey, you are a Gemini, and Uranus, unless you're in your 70s or 80s, has not been in your sign at all in your lifetime. This represents the start of some sort of tectonic shift. It's going to be a little bit different if you are a Gemini sun versus a Gemini rising chart. But on some level, it's like Uranus is crossing the front doorstep of your life and saying, okay, it's time to reinvent everything. It's very possible that you're already feeling this. It could be a restlessness. It could be something where you sense it on the horizon and need to do things differently and need to make a change. Maybe not, but Uranus is trying to break you free from yourself. It's initiating a period in your life of rapid personal growth and transformation. What is the most radical thing that you can do at this time, Gemini? And maybe, again, the most radical thing you can do is to choose yourself. It is to have peace. It is to let go. It is to go towards your dreams. It really depends on who you are. But again, this is the start of a big shift and transformation and change that we will continue to keep coming back to over the coming months and even over the coming years. Cancer. Cancer, so the moon is your planet in this week. The moon is traveling between Virgo all the way to Sagittarius. So for you, Virgo is a sign that really talks about putting things in order, like the tasks that you need to do, the things around the neighborhood, busyness, but also voice, communication, how you think and listen and learn. And when the moon is, I know it's your birthday season, and when the moon goes into Libra around the middle of this week, start to pay attention, because this is a moon that really picks up on the energies of that Cancer new moon that we had on June 25th. That Cancer new moon marked a new beginning in your life. It played off the energies of the eclipse that we had on March 29th in Aries, your career sign. Cancer, Libra for you is your sign of home, voice, family, roots and grounding. And so this is a time when some of that energy of change and transformation could be put towards your home environment. Maybe some Cancers are thinking about moving, or some Cancers need to sort of put some focus on their home environment and the household. Then we get into Uranus going into Gemini. So it's interesting because Gemini represents your 12th sign. The 12th sign is the last sign. It is a sign that if you have to understand the rest of the chart in order to understand the 12th sign, because each sign in your personal astrology represents your life, from the life that you can see to the life that you can't see. And the 12th represents the part of life that you can't see. It is you beyond this world. It is your spirituality. It is the way that I talk about the 12th with people. It's like even physics teaches us that we can only see 5% of our universe. And if we can only see 5% of our universe, then the 12th represents the 95% that we can't see. Uranus is the Great Awakener. It is an evolutionary planet. And it's going into the 12th room in a place that is typically something that we can't see. It is beyond this world. It is within us. It is the most quiet, subtle, and perhaps even spiritual parts of our lives. Each one of you will live Uranus and Cancer. You live Uranus and Gemini differently over the next 6-7 years. But something will take place behind the scenes. Something will take place intuitively, spiritually. It'll take place in your dreams. And something will begin to reveal itself to you, because when we go into the 12th, which is ironic because we're talking about Gemini, it's not about your rational mind understanding. It's about something that needs to be discovered within. So perhaps I'm sounding like Yoda at the moment, but the 12th is such a quiet, sacred place. So I guess the question for you to begin to reflect on, Cancer, is, what is the role of the quiet, the sacred, the spiritual in your life? Is there a desire for more? Do you feel that you are ready, or that you want to open that door, that hidden door within? Maybe you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Katie. So Uranus will make itself known to you, just not in overt ways. But it's beginning to shift that inner domain within, so that you can live something in a very new way 7 years from now when Uranus gets into Cancer. Leo. Leos, the sun is your planet. And so I know it's Cancer season, so we've gotten to the end of your personal calendar. And the sun is bringing you behind the scenes to rest and to prepare for the next chapter in your life, and your birthday season, of course, or the restart of your personal cycle if you're Leo rising. Leo, you are what's called a fixed sign. And I wanted to mention that because since 2018 and 2019, Uranus has been in Leo. Uranus has been in Taurus. Sorry, Neptune is turning retrograde this week, and I swear, because I have so much Neptune in my chart, that it just takes my brainwaves and it takes it someplace else. So thank you for bearing with me, or my own personal Mercury retrograde. So Uranus is going into Gemini, And it has been in Taurus for the last 6, 7 years. And Taurus is your career sign. And I know I feel like we've had many conversations about this over the past 6, 7 years, but I can go through a list of Leo and Leo rising people in my head, and some of you may have made major changes in your career over the last 6, 7 years. It's not to say that all of you have, and of course, career comes in a lot of different forms. And some of you have said to me, but it hasn't been career for me. And it's possible that it's not career, it's your relationship with responsibility. It's how you show up in the world. And while this is beginning to phase out for you, it's just to sort of mention this because it's been such a big period of change and transformation in your astrology. And it's been perhaps a lot of up and downs over the past few years. Now, Venus is in your career sign right now, and it makes a conjunction to Uranus and Taurus on July 4th. So sort of look at this week as coming to some sort of conclusion or some sort of wrapping things up, at least for now, about this period that has really marked the last 6, 7 years, and how your career may have changed, your ambitions may have changed, your relationship with the world may have changed. And that energy is going to start to move to a new sign and a new place in your astrology. And that's something called your 11th. Uranus going into Gemini, the 11th sign, says that over the next 6, 7 years marks a change and transformation in your relationship with friendship, community, social issues and causes, and the collective, and your role in the world. The 11th, like the 10th, marks parts of your personal astrology that are non-personal. They are big, they are expansive, they put you out into the world. And Uranus in this space says that something will begin to change. Perhaps you will get more involved with groups, or more involved in social issues or causes, or getting involved in your community. Maybe you'll see a shift in the friends that are in your life, or you're bringing in new types of friends in your life, for example. It's hard to say, because there is no cookie cutter interpretation for what Uranus will mean in this part of your chart. It doesn't have the same major transformation that perhaps it did in Taurus, but it's still something to pay attention to. It still opens up your eyes to the future. It gives you a different frame. It makes you connect to the world, or maybe the bigger lesson is to reconnect with the world. But that said, it is the end of your personal cycle, all preparing for your birthday season. And I just think that, with Uranus going to Gemini, start to dream, start to wish, start to vision a different type of future that you want to create for yourself. Virgo, Mercury is your planet, and Mercury is in Leo, and actually is going to spend quite a bit of time in Leo. And we were talking about this last week, but just a refresher, Leo is something called your 12th sign. In your astrology, you have 12 signs. You are not just a Virgo, you have 11 other signs that are around you that stand in for different parts of your life. And there's a part of your chart that talks about relationship, there's a part of your chart that talks about career, and there's also a part of the chart that talks about you beyond this world. Like, oh my gosh, me beyond this world? What does that even mean? So the 12th, on a very basic day-to-day level, means that you're sort of in this time that takes you over the next 2 months where you need to rest, you need to reflect, you need to go within. I don't make the astrology, I just report on it, but sometimes we need this time, and even what I like to call a sacred alone time. Sacred alone time means that you need to spend time with yourself. It's not about other people's responsibilities, and typically Virgo is very involved in helping and serving and taking care of everything, but maybe you need this time for yourself. It's not just for yourself, it's to reconnect to something inside of you. Who are you? And it's very easy to lose that when you're really involved in all the different things that life sometimes asks you to be involved in. Some Virgos are going to feel like they actually don't have a lot of energy. It really depends on the person and the chart. And I would just say, don't push it over the next 2 months. That said, really the big marquee exclamation for you is Uranus going into Gemini. And Gemini represents the top of your astrology. Again, you're not just a Virgo, you are a Virgo with 11 signs around you, and it forms this wheel. And the top of the wheel for you is the sign of Gemini. It is your public life, your public reputation, the title after your name, and your professional life, including your career. It is possible, and it's hard to predict because it's going to be unique for who you are, is that you are at the very beginning of a complete career change. Talk to your fellow Leos, ask questions. It might be different, but there is the possibility of completely reinventing your professional life over the course of the next 5, 6, and 7 years. Some of you are like, yes, I've been feeling this. Some of you are like, no, I do not want to change careers. And it's possible that you don't change careers, but how you do your professional life needs to change. If that means that you have been sort of playing it small, phoning it in, or doing something that just doesn't fit you, you will find that Uranus is trying to shake things up. I'm not a Virgo, but I sort of had this I'm sort of like this thought in the back of my head. I'm like, should I just go into insurance? Like, do I need to be an astrologer anymore? And maybe that's just the energy of Uranus and Gemini. So maybe you're just like, do I want to do this anymore? Really depending on the person. And I've seen this just looking at famous people charts. Like sometimes when Uranus goes through the 10th, there's a time of a lot of fame and notoriety. Of course, we're not all going to be famous over the next few years, but it's just to sort of give you a very big scope of what this energy means. Bare minimum, it represents a tectonic shift in your life. It's already happening. It's for you to listen to what you are being shown, what's showing up in your life, what changes, what doors are coming to you, because it may represent the start of this big shift in your life. And then maybe with Mercury in Leo, at least the next 2 months, it's a time to get out of your own way, a time to listen, and to get back in touch with your intuition. Libra. So Venus is your planet, and Venus is coming to the end of Taurus this week. And Taurus is what's called your 8th sign. So just your friendly reminder, you are a Libra or Libra rising, but you have all 11 signs, other 11 signs around you. And Taurus represents your 8th. The 8th is a space where we have to go to face ourselves. And I know you're like, I don't want that, Katie, next. But you have to understand that if we never question ourselves, we never look within, we never yearn for more, we never make changes, we don't grow. It's possible that the last few weeks could have touched on emotional themes. As Venus comes to the end of Taurus, it meets up with Uranus. Now, Uranus has been there since 2018, 2019. And each Libra is different, but it's to go back to where was life at the start of 2018? Because it represented this inner shift or need to change your inner psychic landscape. Some Libra rising, that means to open the door of all the stuff that you know that you need to work on or needed to work on because you've been doing this with your emotions and you spent the last 6 years unpacking things. Some Libra risings, it's been a lot of emotional heavy lifting. It's been a lot of breakthroughs and awakenings. I can sort of go through a list of Libra rising people. You're like, wait, I need to stop people pleasing. Uranus is like, yes, you need to stop people pleasing. And don't forget about yourself. But, every Libra rising is different. So Uranus has been opening some psychic space for you. The question is, what have you discovered over the last few years? Venus meeting up with Uranus this week is sort of one of the final moments in this process of inner psychic transformation. Uranus goes into Gemini, your ninth sign, starting late on the 6th of July or early on the 7th of July, depending on where you are in the world. And the ninth for you represents wisdom and knowledge. How do you get wisdom and knowledge? You have to go through the eighth. Uranus going into the ninth room says you're beginning a time of rapid personal growth and transformation about how you see the world, how you see yourself in the world, what you think is true, what you believe in, what you stand for, your convictions. For some Libra risings, it's about matters of faith, or it could be about education, you thinking about going back to school. For some Libra risings, you have such a desire to see the world. You're traveling and doing a lot of traveling over the next 5, 6, 7 years. But on a greater level, for all of you, it's about opening up your eyes. And it's about seeing things very differently and expressing things very differently and expressing whatever it is that you have discovered over the last 6, 7 years while Uranus was in Taurus. Because the ninth is also where we broadcast. We publish, we share, we hold the torch, we inspire, we motivate people. And so how will you, this might not be relevant for everybody, how will you begin to inspire and motivate people over the coming years? Scorpio. So Mars is your planet, and Mars is in Virgo, and it will be in Virgo all the way until the beginning of August. So it's taking your energy and it's moving it towards something called your 11th. In your personal astrology, there's Scorpio, there's Scorpio rising, but there's 11 other signs around you that stand in for different parts of your life. The 11th is nearing the end of your personal astrology. It is your friends, your community. It is your sense of the world through social issues, social causes. It's a sense of the collective, and even your hopes and dreams and wishes for the future. Your energy right now, and it's interesting because Mars is in the same place where there's going to be a solar eclipse on September 21st. Where Mars is really putting you into the crossroads or crosshairs, depending on how you look at it, with something that has to do with a group or an organization that you're involved in, or a sense of your role in the world. It's just for you to start to see how that becomes more and more a part of your experience. Then there's Gemini, and that's where Uranus is going into Gemini, starting the 6th and the 7th of this week, depending on how you look at it. So let's rewind for a second. Because Scorpio, you're something called a fixed sign. And I would have said this to you back in 2018, 2019. Certainly I was saying this to my clients. I was like, this is a big deal transit. Uranus has not been in Taurus in your lifetime, and it's now in your relationship sign. And so it's spent the last 6, 7 years in your relationship sign. It's going to be a little bit different if you're a Scorpio rising versus a Scorpio sun, especially if you're a Scorpio sun. It's really demanded that you make rapid personal growth and transformation. Scorpio, look at where you were at the start of 2018. Look at where you are now. From the relationship standpoint, it could simply mean that you have opened up. You don't relate and connect to people in the same way that you related and connected to people back in 2018, 2019. I have known Scorpios that were single for years and they suddenly got into a relationship, and that relationship really changed and defined their experiences over the past few years. Some Scorpios are still single. It's not always about what I like to call capital R relationships, our primary relationships, but again, it could be something as simple as value and worth, the ability to open up, the ability to actually rely on other people. And Scorpio, my joke to Scorpio, and I'm saying this as a Scorpio has the guard tower, the moat, the retina scan, the bouncer, the fingerprint scan. Those are all the checks that somebody has to go through to get into a Scorpio's life. And so what happens if that's not there anymore? And maybe that was the most radical thing that could happen the past few years. Well, now Scorpio, Uranus is going into something called your 8th. Now, you are the 8th sign. The 8th sign represents the duality of life, the duality of creation, light, the dark, and also Scorpio's power to make profound transformations. Scorpio is the only sign of the zodiac that has three animals. It has the scorpion, it has the phoenix, and it has the eagle. So Uranus is bringing you into a space that is designed for you to face yourself. And I know you're like, but wait a second, didn't I just face myself the last 7 years? In this way, it's different. So Scorpio, it's going to be different depending on who you are, depending on the life you've lived, the work that you've done on yourself, your sense of self-awareness. There's always something to reveal. There's always something to dig into. And so the next 6-7 years are trying to transform your inner psychic landscape. The eighth is your unconscious, the things that you sometimes don't want to see. It is the things that you push away, but it is also intimacy, vulnerability, trust, power, and control. How does that begin to radically change and transform over the coming years? It remains to be seen. But whatever will be happening while Uranus is in Gemini will be deeply personal, intimate, and will really only be shared in a very, space with somebody that you trust, because not everybody gets to hear about what happens in the eighth. If you're a Scorpio that doesn't do any work on yourself, which is that possible, but Uranus is saying it's time to face yourself, it's time to look within. And so this is the part where the 50% is you. How do you meet that time? So we'll continue to unpack it because it's very personal, it's very psychic, it's very internal. And what it's trying to do is to liberate you from you, because you're the eight, so that you can move this energy into a different phase and setting. Sagittarius, Jupiter is your planet, and it has been in Cancer since June 9th. So how have you been feeling things differently over the past 3 weeks? Because the energy of your sun or the energy of your chart is now in Cancer. Home, family, connection, that sense of familiarity, like whose family, where is home, but also Cancer is getting into very deep and intimate spaces in your life. Maybe you're like, I don't know, Katie, I don't feel any change, but it's to continue to lean into the transit, because this is the time you last had this 2013-14 to go into a very your inner psychic landscape. That said, the big change that's happening at the end of this week, we'll continue to talk about this, is Uranus going into Gemini. This is what's been kind of interesting, especially when Jupiter was back in Gemini, May 2024 to June 2025, is that Gemini is the relationship sign. So in a way, Jupiter was kind of surfacing this area over the past 12 months. What has changed about relationship, or have new people come in, or how do you connect and relate and socialize and interact with people? Uranus is a very different energy than Jupiter. Jupiter rules you. Jupiter moves through a space in a year. It sort of gives you the sense of new experiences, wanting more, new travel, new exploration within life. But Uranus is about awakenings. Uranus going into your relationship sign, where it has never been your lifetime, unless you are in your 70s or 80s, Uranus is the start of some sort of tectonic shift in your life, and one that will be either played out through the frame of relationships or through how you show up in life and how you connect, relate, and socialize with people. The thing about astrology is that on one hand, there are these sort of stock archetypes, but on the other, it's intensely personal. It's personal to your lived experiences, the part of the world you're from, your culture, and also your relationship with relationships in this case. And so some of you, the next 6-7 years will bring big changes in your relationships. You will get into a serious relationship. You will get out of a serious relationship. You will open up. You will change something fundamentally in how you connect, relate, and socialize with people. What has been interesting is because Sagittarius has been in a time of settling down. Saturn continues to be on the bottom side of the Sagittarius's chart. And so Sag, it's like needed to anchor. Typically Sag is like, no, I want to go to another country. I want to travel. I need freedom. But it has been really a time for Sag to reframe its relationship with anchor and stability and security. And so here comes relationship. So it will be interesting to see what happens over the coming months and years. And certainly it's something that we will continue to unpack together. Capricorn. Capricorn, so Saturn is your planet and it is in Aries. And I know that I keep saying this, but like, how do you feel? It is a new time in your personal astrology. Every 30 years, Saturn goes into Aries. We have to go back to 96, 97, 98 for the last time Saturn was in this part of your chart. Anytime a planet goes through Aries, it initiates the energies of new beginnings. It's a time of a new chapter in your life, not just a chapter that will last a year, but a chapter that really talks about a much longer arc of time. It is a time to settle down, to put down roots, to answer the question, where is home and who is home? Whether you need to take care of your family, whether you need to take care of a parent who's older, whether you are younger, you're getting married, you're starting a family, perhaps it's none of the above, but we all need to feel that we have something that really grounds and anchors us, a place that we can call home. Capricorn, typically as a sign, is much more focused on the world, the duties and responsibilities of life, career, ambitions, building things. Capricorn is the builder. But this is a time where the universe is saying to you the priority may be something very different. Listen to it. Of course, you're a Capricorn. You take these things seriously. I feel like I can sort of go through my head with some Capricorns where, whether it's somebody's mother-in-law that is getting older and needs more care, or another Capricorn who's getting married and wants to move out of the city, it sort of represents these personal shifts and transformations. Maybe it's none of the above for you, but it's just begin to listen for how this, especially June and July and August, is showing you a new phase and chapter, much bigger chapter of your life. Then there's Uranus going to Gemini, and this is not hitting up on some of the bigger parts like it is for other signs, but it's going into something called your sixth sign. Capricorn typically, depends, thrives on stability and things being the same and having sort of systems in place. And now here's Uranus and Gemini. And so we'll need to see what this means for you, because Uranus is typically saying these are systems that need to change. These are routines that no longer support you, and maybe you want to switch things up. Maybe your work changes over the coming years. Maybe your sense of day-to-day life completely changes. Maybe you're going from a city environment to a suburban or rural environment, and that's how your day-to-day life changes. Maybe you just want to make really healthy, positive changes with your health. You want to change your diet. You want to eat a certain way or cut something out, or maybe it's something else. But you have to sort of listen for how this transit is beginning to show up in your life. A light switch is not going to be flipped when we get to the end of this week. It's already happening. You're already sensing it. Maybe you're like, yeah, I really need to start juicing, or I really need to spend more time in nature, or I really need to stop working so hard because it's not balanced. And so you might be reinvigorating or sort of re-envisioning your day-to-day structures and routines. Look for it, listen for it, and it's possible that something about your day-to-day life will look very different, perhaps even your health and wellness, over the coming years. Aquarius. So Saturn is your planet, and Saturn, I'm saying this to Capricorn because you're both ruled by Saturn. Saturn has been in Aries since the end of May. This is a big deal because June and July and August, Saturn is in a sign that has not been in since 1996, 7, and 8. Your homework, if you were alive then, of course, is to go back and reflect on that time. What was going on? Who was in your life? What were the themes? It's not a carbon copy. I'm dating myself when I use that metaphor. It's not to be a repeat of that time. It's to look at the themes of your life because now you come full circle. For you, Aries marks a period of individuality, individualization, a need to move, explore, speak, travel, write, communicate, to start a manuscript, to focus on your education, to travel more. So it really depends on who you are in the life that you live. It's, Aquarius is an air sign. An air sign typically needs movement, freedom, exploration, and so Aries is kind of giving you that with its element fire. June and July and August are sort of a preview of how things are changing because then Saturn will go back to Pisces on September 1st. So really take note and pay attention and see how you are feeling things a bit differently in your life. Then there's Uranus and Gemini, and this means that Uranus is finally beginning to get out of your fourth. I feel like I can go through my head with Aquarius rising clients, and some of you have seen major changes and transformations in your home environment over the last 6-7 years. You have moved across the country, you have made huge changes with family, there's been changes in the household, you have left behind toxic family members. So take note of how your home, your household, your roots, your foundation have changed over the last 6-7 years because it represented a time of like emotional, personal, rapid personal growth and transformation over the past 6-7 years. Uranus going into Gemini doesn't necessarily touch on the big shifts that you felt the last few years. It is more coming to a space that talks about how you express who you are, your sense of identity, your talents, your gifts, your abilities. And you could be, scratching your head and thinking, but I don't have any talents and gifts and abilities. You have to understand, I realize there are many Aquariuses out there. My father's an Aquarius, my brother's an Aquarius, but there's only one you, meaning in all the universe, there's only one you. And so Uranus going through Gemini is trying to remind you of that, to wake you up. And of course, you will live it in your own way, live it in the way that is relevant to your life. If this gives you the permission to come out or to be you, because the idea that Uranus wants whatever is on the inside to match what is on the outside, for example. Uranus will say that on some level, you will begin to make a personal reinvention and transformation over the next 5, 6, and 7 years. It won't be dramatic and not perhaps in the way that you felt the shifts of the last 6, 7 years, but it will be personal and lived in some way. As a little technical side note, it is to go and find Uranus in your own astrology and its placement and its aspects to get a sense of what Uranus is evoking, because wherever Uranus was when we were born represents something on a larger level that we are changing and transforming. There you go. And finally, Pisces. So last but not least, Pisces, Jupiter is your planet. And how are we feeling Jupiter in Cancer? It has been, 3 weeks? Almost, 3 weeks since Jupiter went into Cancer, and it now pulls your energy into a fellow water sign. Do you feel more sensitive, emotional? Do you feel more at home, more yourself? And I think the beauty of, at least on paper, the beauty of Jupiter being in Cancer is that it gives you a chance, especially over the, because it's been so much heaviness, I think with Saturn and Pisces the last few years, it gives you a chance to really kind of come back to yourself and your needs and your wants over the next, 11 months at this point. The big news, however, is Uranus going into Gemini at the end of this week. We'll talk about this more next week, but Gemini forms the base and foundation of your astrology. And as you can imagine, with the base and foundation of anything, it holds up your life. Now, Jupiter came through here May of 2024 to June of 2025. And that was a time for you to focus on family, focus on home, focus on the household, to move, to put down roots. I did say Aquarius, to put down roots and to look at 2024 to 5 to give you a sense of what was going on thematically, because now Uranus is going to come into this space. You will all live this transit differently because you're all your own people. But on some level, this is the start of a seismic, perhaps at least tectonic shift in your life. This is a mark of seasons, a change of seasons. When Uranus went through my fourth by whole sign, I moved to New York City. I didn't know anybody in New York City, barely. This is just a personal example because I needed to go to a place that matched what I felt was home, or where I would find the people who would feel like home. That's just a personal example. And it doesn't mean that you're all going to move or you move to New York City or make a major move. But your relationship as it is up until this point with home, with family, with the past, with memories, with the things that hold you and support you, the things that restrict you, will begin to profoundly change. I have seen the gamut with Uranus going through the fourth, again, from a move or a big move, but sometimes the move is within, because our address isn't just physical, it is internal. And sometimes the most radical thing that can happen is that we can come back to ourselves. We can put roots within, we can feel that we can anchor, we can find home within. But it's for you to begin to listen for this transit, to see it's already happening. We don't have to wait till the 6th or the 7th to really get a sense of Uranus and Gemini. It's here already. It's already in the ethers. So Uranus is beginning to show you where maybe you need to change your roots, change your foundation, to feed and care and nurture for your life on a much different level, or maybe to let the past go because it's no longer supporting you. So there you go. That is your look at the astrology of June 30th through July 7th, 2025. So I appreciate you all. Sorry for the chunky internet. Yeah, that's what happens when you're on Beach House Internet. But I wish you all a great week. You can book a consultation with me. You can follow me online. You can sign up for my newsletter. And I appreciate you all. And I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.